Exploring the misconceptions of obsessive compulsive disorder in teenagers from the UK.
It's a crippling and mysterious disease that makes everyday life a minefield for some 5 million Americans. OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder.
It's like they took all of these things that, when done properly and allowed to be expressed properly, and put a blanket disorder over it. Oh, you recognize patterns and numbers in a way that make you use logic in a way that helps you philosophize and theorize.
Unless I get them and then wake up really early and put them back. I need help.
You're out of your motherfucking mind.
Exploring the representations of OCD in the media.
It's portrayed as being a perfectionist.
And it's somewhat embarrassing.
You just can't shake his hands.
Everything that anybody's ever told me is OCD and I need to work on are things that make my life substantially better. Obsessively washing my hands, my skin is clearer, I get sick less often. Obsessively organizing and wanting everything to have a place. I always know where my shit is.
14, 15, 16.
What are you looking at, Ruth?
17.
Ruth, look at me.
1, 2, 3.
What are you doing, Ruth?
Embarrassed, and I thought I had humiliated my family, and I thought that this is going to be the end of my career.
I feel good mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I'm more hydrated. I make better choices.
Their own fears of germs had become debilitating. Like Bridget, afraid of germs from her own family, unable to sit on the same couch as her mother.
I go to bed earlier.
Doc, I'm feeling great.
It's like they took all of these things that, when done properly and allowed to be expressed properly, and put a blanket disorder over it. Oh, you recognize patterns and numbers in a way that make you...
If you have time to lean, you have time to clean.
What? Say it again. What?
I had to, it was a stair stepping.
Yeah.
And I had to number 3 stairs. I don't know why.
I have problems. What if my heart stops beating? What if I'm looking for a bathroom, I can't find it, and my bladder explodes?
I'm allergic to foods, and pillows and curtains and perfumes. Can you imagine that? Allergic to perfumes?
This con artist is stricken with a heightened case of OCD. He learns to live with himself and becomes who he wants to be.
Dr. Green, how can you diagnose someone as an obsessive compulsive disorder and then act as though I had some choice about barging in?
The reality is that he's a misanthropic hermit, extremely OCD, and neurotically superstitious.
Daniel Radcliffe has opened up to his fans about his experience dealing with a severe case of obsessive-compulsive disorder during his formative years. Sadly, it started when he was only 5. I had to repeat every sentence I said under my breath. He added that it's really important for others who are dealing with OCD tendencies to seek out professional help.
If I fake it, then I don't have it.
You're out of your motherfucking mind. I don't buy it. Sorry.
Mental health is becoming more understood as awareness is spread through those struggling as they tell their stories. The misconceptions and stereotypes surrounding OCD still remain. I have found that OCD is still shown to be humorous and is widely used as an adjective for being organized and clean. OCD is shown in the media to be a result of a character's trauma, which leads to a person becoming obsessed with cleanliness, germs, and organization. These are all stereotypical traits of OCD. OCD UK estimate that approximately 750,000 people in the UK struggle with OCD. So why do the representations in the media mainly focus on the perfectionism expectations of OCD? The lack of understanding leads to dangerous perceptions being formed by the audience due to the traits such as Adrian Monk in Monk, Sheldon Cooper in The Big Bang Theory, and Malvin Adele in As Good As It Gets. Their obsessions with cleanliness further add to the misconceptions and stereotypes believed, which is one of the frequent criticisms of the portrayal of OCD in film and TV, due to the compulsions being shown in isolation without showing the reason behind them. Intrusive thoughts and the unglamorized sides of OCD are not shown through characters, with the disorder becoming more of a quirky trait to make the audience laugh. The media lacks visually showing the inner turmoil of the characters, meaning that the full extent of OCD is not fully known or understood by those watching. Whilst the characters' compulsions may help to normalize neurodiversity, the danger is that the true understanding in how to support one with OCD is lost through the lack of explanation into why the characters are behaving the way they do. The emphasis on cleaning obsessions only represent a quarter of the people with the disorder, showing how truly damaging these ideologies and beliefs can be. These stereotypes lead to damaging statements such as, "I'm so OCD," and instead show characters' recovery as a result of finding love or compassion. These ideas trivialize the disorder. It could lead to people feeling isolated and out of the norm, leading to real sufferers feeling embarrassed and scared, resulting in the sufferers living undiagnosed. Exploring the public's perception of OCD. These are actors telling real stories and expressing real emotions shared on the online survey. I began my survey interview by asking the subjects if they personally struggle with obsessive-compulsive disorder. This helped me to understand their prior knowledge of the disorder, as well as helping me to acknowledge any biases. Do you personally have OCD?
No.
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 Yes.
No.
No.
No. Yes.
In your own words, explain what you know and understand about OCD.
Obsessive thoughts that usually can be helped by performing acts known as compulsions.
The need for everything or something to be as you placed or planned previously.
Doing things repetitively and not being able to control it. A person may feel driven to perform repetitive behaviours and have recurring unwanted thoughts.
It's not just about making things look neat and tidy.
They hyperfixate on things normal people don't.
You have an obsession over doing things or believing something that is unnecessary but becomes necessary to you.
Often needing very strict structure and routines. Having paranoid thoughts.
Extreme compulsions and repetitive behaviours. Everything needs to be in a specific order, or I feel like it is in the wrong place and it makes me uncomfortable.
I have a lot of horrible intrusive thoughts which make me feel like a terrible person.
Where have you learnt your information about OCD?
Social media.
NHS sources and my own sources.
Online articles and medical websites.
Social media and TV shows.
Psychology A-level.
TV programs.
My uncle is a mental health therapist. Social media.
Girlfriend has a...
internet mostly.
Media consumption.
Would you consider OCD to be a serious mental illness?
Definitely. In some cases it can be.
No.
Depends on severity.
It can be.
Yes. No. Definitely.
If it causes harm, then yes.
There are different levels.
Do you believe OCD is represented accurately in the media?
No.
Sometimes.
I think there's a lot of stereotypes and misconceptions that people believe.
Not sure.
No, it's portrayed as being a perfectionist.
Depends where you research it.
Yes. Not at all.
No. No, nor do I think it needs to be.
I don't know.
Yes.
No.
Not always.
Fails to recognise that OCD can affect people through many different forms.
People have grown up seeing the repetitive representations in the media.
I'm not sure.
Not really, not always.
Would you describe OCD as just being organised and tidy?
Not always, but it's a common trait.
Yes.
Definitely not. No, it's much more complex.
It is a common trait.
No.
No.
Yes.
Being organised and tidy is not considered as a disorder. No.
There are many kinds.
Yes.
Do you think OCD is as common as other mental disorders?
Yes, but it's often mistaken for other things.
Yeah. It is often mistaken for other things.
Maybe.
I'm not educated enough. No.
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 From your understanding, in what age range is OCD most common? This graph represents the results given by the audience from the online survey. Would you personally believe that OCD is the way it is represented in the media?
I don't know.
In some shows.
I don't think there's much representation.
How do you feel about people using OCD as an adjective?
It's not right. Wrong. Annoyed.
It depends on the context.
Insensitive. It's misguiding and incorrect.
Don't care.
Not bad, just uneducated.
It's too complex.
One of my least favourite things in the world.
It becomes an overused term by people. No, it's a serious illness.
Makes it seem less severe.
It's overused and should be used more carefully. No one takes this disorder seriously enough, and sometimes I feel ashamed for having it.
I travelled to Birmingham to find more perspectives on obsessive compulsive disorder. To maintain the subject's privacy, I will show their responses through subtitles, showing where I conducted the interviews. No, I don't have OCD. No. I don't have OCD, but I know people who do. Yes, I do have OCD. I've never been tested for OCD, but I should get tested. I do understand that people with OCD have obsessions about certain things, and about other neurodivergent disorders, and I do have traits of OCD, so maybe it is a mental disorder. I understand that it's not just about being perfect. People want everything to be perfect and tidy. It causes, anxious episodes when you like to clean. Social media. I know people with it. Studying the topic at school. I don't really know what OCD actually is. Common knowledge. I think there's different scales of OCD. I think mental illness is like a spectrum more than anything. I think it would just be hard to live with. Some people struggle with it and some people don't see it that much in the media. The media focuses more on other mental disorders. Some people do not care about being tidy but still have OCD. It's about being obsessive, not being organised. It's like a constant nag. More extreme versions of OCD are noticed more frequently. People with mild OCD can live with it. I don't know when OCD starts. Not many people are actually diagnosed. I think it starts at a young age. And people born with it. I think people can't make OCD up completely, so the representations must be somewhat true. I never see any representations in the media. Make jokes about OCD if you have the disorder and use it as an adjective. Sometimes it's just true to use OCD as an adjective, so I'm not too sure. I think people claim to have OCD when they don't, and tend to exaggerate what they experience. Why the misconceptions and stereotypes of OCD are so damaging. After looking into how the public's perception of OCD is influenced by the media's representations and what they believe the mental disorder to be, I will be able to compare my findings to the scientific knowledge I will conduct. To gain further knowledge into the misconceptions of OCD, I have already tried to reach out to knowledgeable and credible organisations and people who would be able to help me further understand how destructive these misconceptions truly are. However, unfortunately, I was unable to make contact with these sources, leading to me relying on my independent research methods, as I hope to make use of credible and official websites and information, meaning my research processes will not be interrupted, as I will be able to work independently instead. Through developing my understanding into the representation of OCD in the media, I have concluded that filmmakers and others involved in how mental illness is represented in the media tend to only focus on the organisation and cleanliness ideas of OCD. The stereotypical representation is further promoted and taught through these unhelpful stereotypes, therefore influencing the audience's perspectives of what OCD is and how it really affects people. Television shows such as Monk and Friends only ever show the compulsions of over-the-top cleaning and organisation and never venture into the obsessions and intrusive thoughts experienced by the characters themselves. This then leads to influencers working in the media like Gabby Hanna claiming that they too relate to the characters and have OCD themselves, where they can then spread misinformation about what life with a mental disorder is like. For example, Gabby Hanna uses her social media platform to express that OCD is a blessing rather than a curse, which goes directly against what OCD is, and having the disorder is a luxury due to the person being organised, furthering society's misunderstanding into the reality of OCD. This is also shown through Khloe Kardashian, with her show she platforms called CloCD, where she shows off her organisation around her, forcing the audience members to think in a similar way to she does. This is clearly damaging, as it does not cannot accurately show the struggles of OCD, forcing those who actually struggle to not feel represented and seen, further isolating them, preventing them from receiving help. Whilst awareness of mental illness in any respect is a positive action in helping those struggling to not feel alone, the misrepresentation of OCD can lead to more distress in a person's life. When OCD is shown in the media, contamination OCD is the only subtype represented, which only affects around 25% of people with a mental disorder. This leads to people with other, less common subtypes of OCD feeling unsupported and alone due to not seeing themselves anywhere. The media relies on the glamorized version of mental health, which is one of the main reasons for cleanliness and organization being used to represent OCD, rather than the more destructive, disturbing, and horrific realities those with OCD have to deal with every day. This is also due to the lack of research conducted by the content creators, as they present OCD either through themselves or through a character to be more of a quirky, fun personality trait, rather than a debilitating illness, which can increase the sufferer's chances of feeling suicidal and dying by suicide, as depression is evident between 25 and 50% of those struggling with OCD. The lack of understanding is evident through the lack of obsessions explored through the media when OCD is shown, leading to the design characters looking more random and strange as they appear to be acting irrational. Yet the reality of OCD is the opposite, with the compulsions always being rational to the OCD sufferer, as they attempt to eliminate any anxieties caused by the obsessions reoccurring throughout a person's life. The erratic depiction of OCD creates more stigma surrounding mental illness, alienating those with OCD again, leading to them feeling embarrassed, so therefore not reaching out for help. A character's OCD is often shown to be a result of a character's trauma, despite there being no signs of the disorder previously, which is highly unrealistic. The characters also appear to fully recover without any forms of medication such as SSRIs or therapies such as exposure therapy or cognitive behavioural therapy, as recommended by psychiatrists, again showing the lack of understanding and how their understanding of this mental illness is very surface-based and a glamorized version of what the reality is. This lack of understanding is made clear through the use of OCD being used as an adjective still today, as it is further emphasised through the character's personality trait being typical of what people believe OCD to be. The reality of living with OCD, a scientific point of view. So, what is OCD? Obsessive compulsive disorder is characterized by the obsessive thoughts and compulsions a person performs, and is often debilitating and can interact with all aspects of a person's life. Men, women, and children can all be affected by this, with many suffering from the age of 6. Whilst others describe their symptoms developing through puberty and through young adulthood. The obsessions are described as unwelcoming thoughts, feelings, images and urges, worries or doubts which constantly return to one's mind. The distressing nature of obsessions cause the sufferer to feel trapped in the mind, with no escape from their worst nightmares. These obsessions are referred to as intrusive thoughts due to how invasive they are, impacting one's daily life, making a person feel distressed about why these thoughts are reoccurring and why they won't go away. The intrusive thoughts target a person's worst fears and insecurities, whilst also being of a personal, private topic, making people hide their obsessions due to their embarrassment. Patients are reminding of how their thoughts are not a reflection of their personality, and how unlikely it is for their obsession to come true by showing how unlikely a person is to act upon them. Compulsions are characterized as repetitive actions, completed with the intention of decreasing the intrusive thoughts and obsessions. Compulsions can be things one does, such as physically checking if straighteners are not plugged in, or can be recurring mental actions, such as repeating certain words or statements in a person's head. A person may also use checking behaviours by asking others for reassurance, and then getting them to disagree with the obsessions they are dealing with. The compulsions release the anxiety a person is dealing with as a result of the obsessions, which then becomes a natural behaviour whenever these feelings arise. The sufferer may not be aware of the compulsions they are performing, making it difficult for them to identify their behaviours and resist from doing them. To begin with, the compulsions help with the sufferer feeling distressed, but over time, as the consistency of the actions increase, the urge to complete the compulsion becomes stronger, causing the person to become reliant on these coping mechanisms. Obsessions and compulsions develop to be very time-consuming, tiring and overwhelming, forcing them to stop socializing and taking part in activities they used to enjoy. They can also change and develop at any time, making people fearful for how OCD will affect them next, and in which areas of their life it will attach itself to. The wide-ranging compulsions a person can adopt makes finding the action difficult, as sometimes compulsions are not visible, for example when they are completed mentally. Often the compulsions take place in a person's head, such as rumination. Medical professionals refer to this as pure O, meaning pure obsession, due to the lack of physical behaviours. These actions will not always be clear due to the ever-changing nature. Completing rituals, checking behaviors, correcting thoughts, seeking assurance, rumination, and avoidance of anything associated to the topic are all examples of compulsions a person with OCD may turn to in times of anxiety over their obsessions. I decided to conduct research into 18 different subtypes a person can suffer with. However, it is important to note that there are many more topics a person can struggle with, making the disorder harder to diagnose due to its ever-changing nature and varied topics. The sufferers struggle with shame, guilt, and embarrassment from their obsessions, as OCD targets their most personal fears and insecurities, making it harder for people to speak up about their struggles. These subtypes will look and feel different for every sufferer, meaning that the thought processes and obsessions will vary from person to person. Just because a person struggles with a certain subtype, it does not mean they will struggle with the same fears and compulsions as the others. Through researching obsessive-compulsive disorder, became aware of the various subtypes other than the typical ones seen in the media, which can lead to further understanding the impact of OCD and the range of compulsions sufferers perform to reduce anxiety caused by their obsessions. Checking OCD is known to be one of the most common OCD subtypes, and is the subtype stereotypically shown in movie and television shows. This subtype is categorized by checking-based compulsions, such as excessively making sure the stove is off. The person may feel responsible for something bad happening if the ritual is not completed. The obsessions may vary from safety concerns to making mistakes or behaving inappropriately. These obsessions are put to ease by the sufferer performing the neutralizing behavior. From the outside, the compulsions may appear irrational, but to the sufferers, the need to complete them is extreme to prevent something bad from happening. Contamination OCD is more than just a fear of germs, and in fact can cause immense distress and anxiety. They may have an intense fear of contracting an illness or spreading germs, which they try to neutralize. This subtype can lead to a sufferer avoiding places where they know they can come into contact with germs, as well as them feeling convinced of catching an illness. In an attempt to neutralize the obsession, a person may result in showering after feeling contaminated and researching the illness for hours upon end. Counting OCD results in sufferers believing they can prevent bad things from happening by engaging in counting compulsions. Those with OCD are aware of the fears being irrational, but feel as though they must complete the compulsions to guarantee safety for both themselves and others. The compulsions may worsen after a triggering event, leading to the obsessions becoming more intense. The mental compulsions can evolve into physical compulsions, such as tapping to the number or performing a compulsion a certain number of times. These can affect parts of a person's everyday life as they try to secure their safety. The counting can also be automatic and lead to a person questioning if they'll ever be able to stop counting. Existential OCD is categorized by obsessions and urges to perform compulsive behaviors revolving around contemplating the purpose of life. These compulsions can take hours and can lead to even more questions, excessive research, and seeking reassurance. This subtype is often misdiagnosed as anxiety or depression, meaning that the sufferers do not receive the help they need, worsening their OCD. A person with false memory OCD finds the uncertainty in recalling memories extremely anxiety-inducing. Sufferers result in compulsively recalling memories, as the repetitive behaviors add to the confusion, furthering the obsession. This results in a cycle of replaying the memories back accurately over and over again, which then increases the doubt. This can be extremely distressing and can lead to them questioning whether the memory is the way they remember it, as they begin to doubt themselves, resulting in reassurance seeking. This could lead to them returning to the place of the memory. Harm OCD centers around intrusive thoughts of hurting others, which sufferers try to ease the fear of by engaging in compulsions such as avoiding being around knives or the person they are scared of harming. They may rely on seeking reassurance from those close to them that they believe they won't hurt someone, keeping the sufferer in the vicious cycle. Whilst hoarding is a well-known disorder from excessively collecting and feeling unable to get rid of items, hoarding OCD is an extension from this disorder as the behavior becomes compulsive. This subtype can also develop from contamination OCD, as the fear of germs on a certain item may prevent the person from throwing things away. Just right OCD is a subtype of OCD seen in movies or shows, and is characterized by the general and intense feeling that something is not right. Sufferers struggle with unsure feelings and needing to start an action over again. This can lead to continuously redoing activities or rearranging items until they feel just right. A person with magical thinking OCD relies on common superstitions such as touch on wood. However, not completing the actions cause extreme distress and anxiety after feeling compelled to complete the ritual. Not completing rituals forces the sufferer to believe that something bad will happen. This subtype is described as extreme belief in one's thoughts and how these can directly impact the physical world. For example, one may believe that thinking of a plane crash could result in that thought coming true. Despite the lack of concrete evidence connecting the thoughts to the actions, the extreme levels of anxiety force the sufferer to succumb to the compulsions of asking for reassurance and avoiding triggering topics. Pedophilia OCD is when a person has extreme anxiety about the possibility of being sexually attracted to children. They may struggle with unwanted, intrusive thoughts about the children, and having any doubt about there being any truth to the matter. It forces the sufferers to lose trust in who they are. A troubling topic makes a person feel immense shame and fear, as they feel too embarrassed to speak up about the experience, so is often left undiagnosed. It is important to note that these people are not paedophiles, but their anxiety from OCD forces them to feel like this. For someone with paternal OCD, the anxieties manifest intensely during pregnancy and up to about a year after giving birth. Someone struggling with this subtype is likely to have had OCD prior to the pregnancy. The fear surrounds the possibility of the baby being in danger or that they may hurt the baby. This can lead to an irrational urge for symmetry and order or fear of contamination, leading to the sufferer obsessively checking on the baby or sterilizing the baby's bottle over and over again. Postpartum OCD occurs immediately after childbirth instead of during pregnancy. This subtype is characterized by the obsessions around feeling like your child is always in danger, compulsions such as seeking reassurance that you're a good parent or avoid being alone with the child. Purely obsessional OCD, also known as pure O, from an outsider's point of view appears to have no compulsions due to the compulsions being completed mentally, such as intensely trying to replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts. Unlike the other subtypes, the themes can be ever-changing, as obsessions can transition from fears of hurting others to danger felt by coming into contact with germs. While symptoms might be more subtle, they can still be extremely overwhelming and anxiety-inducing, making life unimaginably hard. Real event OCD is centered more around events which have already taken place, as the OCD twists a real-life scenario into something more harmful or awful than what actually occurred. They may be forced to relive and imagine the incident now, even if there is no clear connection, leading to the feeling of guilt and intense responsibility. The person still feels fear and anxiety about what happened. To relive the distressing emotions, a sufferer may conduct research into their wrongdoings and connections of what happened that day of the incident, in an attempt to find how they are truly responsible for what happened. Religious OCD is when a person struggles with unwanted thoughts and urges relating to their religion, morals, and beliefs. These can then become fears about telling lies, causing harm, or committing a sin. They may relieve their anxiety by extensively praying or avoiding triggering places. This subtype comes with a range of different compulsions, due to the different beliefs making it harder to recognize. Relationship OCD forces a person to question their relationship and if they are with the right person or not, and if that person truly wants to be with them or not. This is referred to as ROCD and can cause a lot of stress within a relationship. This subtype can often be misdiagnosed for anxiety, which can cause an obsessive cycle within the sufferer's mind. Sexual orientation OCD, also known as SOCD, is characterized by obsessions surrounding one's sexual orientation, through the intrusive thoughts, urges, and images, forcing a person to obsess over their sexuality and whether they should feel any doubt around it. They may also be hyper-aware that they are being perceived as the sexuality they identify as. And they may also analyze past conversations and interactions to see how they came across them. Sufferers also avoid people or activities which is associated with sexualities, massively affect a person's day-to-day life due to how distressing these thoughts are to them. This subtype massively interferes with relationships and friendships, showing the intensity of this subtype. People struggling are reminded that this is not about their sexual orientation, but about doubt and self-doubt, and how it can manifest through OCD. Finally, suicidal OCD centers on one's internal desire to hurt oneself. This subtype is characterized by the persistent intrusive thoughts related to suicide, and there may be an attempt to suppress these fears through repetitive and ritualistic behaviors. Someone with suicidal ideation may have similar thought patterns, but these thoughts are deliberate and voluntary, and occur when someone is considering suicide. Suicidal OCD feels out of control as the person does not truly want to die, making the obsessions and compulsions extremely distressing, whilst also confusing the person. This subtype of OCD may be confused with depression, despite the person wanting to live, even though their OCD is telling them not to. The causes of why people have OCD is still unknown, with mental health professionals suggesting that the disorder is a result of a person's personal experience and their biological factors. They suggest that if a person has experienced trauma, abuse, discrimination, or bullying throughout their childhood, they are more likely to have turned to the compulsions to cope with their negative feelings and anxieties as they grow up. As well as this, if a parent is showing signs of compulsive behaviours when dealing with their anxieties, a child may learn to mirror their actions to cope with their same anxieties. Ongoing stress and anxieties in a person's life can lead to compulsions, or can make a person's existing compulsions worsen as they try to cope with their anxieties and problems they're met with. It is also common for pregnancy or giving birth to trigger compulsions within a person. This is known as parental OCD. Some medical professionals believe that OCD already exists in a person's brain, called biological factors. They suggest that the lack of serotonin in a person's brain may have a role in leading to OCD. However, it is unknown whether this is a cause or effect of the condition. Genetic factors are also at play for leading to OCD, but nothing definitive has been found. The definite cause of OCD is still unknown and is often linked to a multitude of factors, focusing on the biological factors, genetic factors, PANDAS, a chemical imbalance, psychological theories, behavioral theories, learned theories, cognitive theory, psychoanalytic theory, stress, and depressive states. Scans of the brain have been encouraged for medical professionals as they look into the chemical imbalance within a faulty brain with genetic defects, linking OCD to genetic or biological causes. Part of the brain is different for those with OCD compared to those without the disorder, but how this leads and relates to certain compulsions is unknown. The use of brain imaging has shown differing blood flow patterns of people suffering with OCD, compared with controls. Cortical and basal gingival region are most strongly implicated. Contradicting this, subsequent metadata studies found differences between OCD and those with healthy controls were consistently visible and prominent in only the orbital gyrus and the head of the caudate nucleus. For example, the way a brain reacts to musicians listening to music compared to non-musicians listening to music. Areas of the brain become switched on in particular situations of stress and anxiety, showing why there is activation in the brain with those struggling with the disorder. None of this research completed by medical professionals supports the idea that OCD is a biological disease. PANDAS trigger an immune system, which can lead to antibodies coming into contact with the basal ganglia. OCD is known as a form in the minds of children after developing severe strep throat infection and may worsen with recurring infections. However, in 2004, a study found no link between the subsequent infections and the increase of the struggle with OCD. Within 1 or 2 weeks of having strep throat, OCD symptoms should begin to appear, but will only affect children who are already predisposed to the disorder through possible genetics or biological causes. Research suggests that OCD is prone to run through families, although the probability of this is slight. A person is 4 times more likely to develop OCD if someone in the family either has the same disorder or a similar disorder on the OCD spectrum, showing genetic links within the illness. Several may be unaware of a person within their family struggling with this or a similar disorder due to the embarrassment felt by OCD, leading to people keeping quiet about their illness. The gene which is responsible for OCD is still unknown, leading researchers to question whether the disorder is a result of genetics or not, with medical professionals suggesting that OCD is a result of learnt behaviour. The most common idea believed by medical researchers is how OCD is due to a person's brain biochemical imbalance, focusing on the chemical serotonin. Serotonin is responsible for sending messages between brain cells, involved in regulating human necessities such as sleep, memory, and anxiety levels. It was initially suggested that the brain chemistry was imbalanced due to the lack of serotonin. However, no scientific research has taken place to confirm this, making this theory implausible at best. Researchers have concluded that the most evidence for serotonin hypothesis is the specificity of serotonin reuptake inhibitors, also known as SRIs, and selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRI medication. SSRIs are heavily involved with the treatment of OCD, especially where comorbidity is present, as long as the patient is aware and involved with the treatment process, along with psychological therapy such as CBT. According to learning theory, OCD symptoms result of a person developing learned negative thoughts and behavioral patterns. Psychological factors which maintain OCD tendencies are dealt with through therapies such as cognitive behavioral therapy. The behavioral theory also suggests that OCD is formed and developed due to the forms of learned avoidance. Therapy for phobic avoidance is successful through the use of desensitization. However, this method is unsuccessful for dealing with a person's compulsions. It has been argued by tackling avoidance behaviors directly through therapy such as exposure and response prevention therapy, also known as ERP, is beneficial in stopping the compulsions from reoccurring and continuing between sessions. Support for this method is provided through various experiments confirming the decrease in anxiety level when a ritual is completed, compared to the unease and discomfort when a compulsion is not completed in response to the obsession. Sufferers develop avoidance compulsions in order to avoid the rise in anxiety. ERP exposes the person to the stimuli, where the person is then taught how to deal with their compulsions. Research shows that when a compulsion is avoided or delayed, after a period of time, the sufferer's anxiety levels will drop, helping to eliminate the anxiety felt altogether after the repetition of ERP. Cognitive theory suggests that OCD is a result of the sufferer's faulty beliefs and their misconceptions of intrusive thoughts, leading to them having the disorder. According to the OCD model, everybody experiences intrusive thoughts from time to time. However, sufferers of OCD are affected worse and feel a sense of responsibility over the thoughts, whilst misinterpreting the thoughts as factual and real, making them harder to dismiss. The constant repetition of intrusive thoughts develop into obsessions, as the nature of obsessions are distressing. The individuals become reliant on the compulsions in order to decrease and eliminate the feelings of anxiety. Cognitive behavioral theory focuses on the meaning of internal and external events, whilst building on behavioral theory due to its originating from the idea of the sufferer's thoughts surrounding intrusive thoughts. In cognitive theory, it is believed that the disorder is developed by people with OCD and their interpretations about the occurrence and context of these intrusions. The spontaneous decay experiments demonstrate the slow decay of anxiety until the feelings become non-existent after avoiding the compulsions for a period of time. The psychoanalytic theory suggests that OCD develops due to a person's fixations arising from unconscious conflicts or discomforts during infancy or childhood, or a way a person has interacted with their parents. However, science doesn't confirm this theory due to its failure to treat OCD. Environmental causes such as stress are commonly blamed for OCD, however there is no evidence to confirm this theory. Stress alone does not cause the mental disorder, yet traumatic life events may trigger OCD. If left untreated, OCD can worsen as stress and problems in a person's life increase, causing both the severity and frequency to drastically worsen for the sufferer. Depression can also contribute to a person's severity with OCD, as well as OCD leading to a person developing depression. To summarize, a range of various factors are to blame for the contribution of developing the mental disorder. However, none of the causes mentioned are the definitive cause, due to not enough research being done into the cause of OCD. Researchers believe that a combination of the theories may result in OCD due to how each of these suggested theories can affect one's mental health and day-to-day life. Whilst the main cause remains unknown, obsessive-compulsive disorder can be chronic, but can be equally treatable with the correct methods and therapies. The reason for developing OCD won't necessarily help someone to overcome their struggles with OCD. So research is targeted to finding methods to help people with OCD and stop their suffering rather than finding the root causes of the illness. Comparing the OCD in media to the reality of OCD. The media's influence on its audience's ideas and beliefs is undeniable, which could either lead to a deeper understanding and positive messages being spread, or misinformation circulating in the minds of impressionable viewers. From conducting research into both the impacts on audiences after being influenced by the media's representation of OCD, and looking into the scientific research of what OCD is, it is clear that there is a divide between what people believe compared to the truth of the mental disorder. I have been able to identify the misconceptions spread through the media which control the ideas and beliefs beliefs of impressionable teenagers watching, which allowed me to target the teenagers living in the UK when looking into how they believe OCD to be and where they have found their knowledge. The stereotypes of OCD clearly dictate the representation shown through film, television, social media sites, which are typically used by teenagers most often. The organisation and cleanliness ideas which represent OCD in the media does contain some truthful aspects relating to contamination and just right OCD subtypes. However, the real struggle is lost on most people due to the limited representation within the media. The clearly glamorized and perfected versions of OCD control the ideas of what OCD is, as the ugly and distressing sides remain hidden from those who do not suffer or research OCD, as this is not presented as welcoming and inviting and could possibly cause distress for the audience and could then lead to a lack of empathy or even a disliking to a character. I believe that the scientific research I have conducted supports this belief, as throughout the process of making this documentary I've discovered how much information is not shown about the disorder and how much more complex and destroying it can be. The range of subtypes I looked into confirm the amount of topics a person with OCD can struggle with and how little representation there really is for those who do not conform to the perfected versions of OCD most people think of. The complexity of OCD is often brushed over, with only the compulsions being shown, causing people to believe that they understand what OCD is, but they do not know the full extent of why the sufferer performs the compulsions they do, as well as a range of compulsions one can perform, relieving anxiety caused by different subtypes, and the fearful life they live as their minds circulate, trapping them inside the OCD cycle. What does the future of OCD representation look like? Whilst the misconceptions and stereotypes still dictate the audience's perception of OCD, I do believe that we move forward as a society into understanding mental health as it is improving, and with that, more knowledge about OCD is being spread. I feel as though we still have a long way to go until people stop using OCD as an adjective and believing that all it means is to be organised and clean, but I also recognise that the progression of awareness is taking place. The media's influence is crucial in developing these ideas, as audiences take in information via TV shows, films, and other social media and media sites, meaning that more accurate portrayals of OCD would thrive being shared through these platforms. I believe that the best representation of OCD is shown through those who actually struggle with the disorder, as they are able to debunk the harmful ideas and speak from their own traumatic experiences of the illness. A social media influencer I believe is spreading helpful and honest information and representation is Nicole Raffi. She uses her YouTube platform to speak on her own experiences with her mental health. Throughout her videos, she has shared her OCD diagnosis journey, beginning with her being undiagnosed and struggling to now being on medication and in an exposure therapy to treat her disorder. This honest portrayal of what OCD has been like for her helps the audience to understand what the disorder is, as well as helping those who are struggling to not feel as alone through their own struggles, no matter where they are in their recovery and treatment journey.
I made a video on this channel talking about my experience with getting diagnosed with OCD, which is something that I never thought I would do. The obsessions and the compulsions have to be distressing. And it's really fucking hard. I've dedicated almost the last 2 years of my life to truly getting better with this because it started to take control of my life. So people making OCD out to be this cleaning disorder has made it incredibly hard for me to recognize that I have it, and as well as so many others. And I realize how much good it actually causes when you're actually honest about your emotions, and not feeding into the stereotypes that are always given in the media. OCD already feels so extremely isolating that I didn't need to make it even more isolating to myself. Whoever pitched OCD as like the desirable mental illness, I'm coming after you. You were evil for that. I'm always down to try and consume new content that portrays OCD, but to be honest, I really haven't found a lot that feels like it really resonates to me. Like I said, Andrew from Big Mouth, and that's about it.
NoCD is now taking large steps to show people in the media with OCD and having them share their own experience with the disorder in an attempt for more people to reach out for help. They have purposefully selected people in the public's eye to share their stories, including Howie Mandel, one of the most well-known people who have OCD.
OCD. People throw the term OCD around like it's no big deal, but it's a severe and very common mental health condition that needs specialty treatment. In fact, general therapy isn't just ineffective for OCD, it can actually be harmful.
They have also worked with other well-known people within the media, such as Sam Temple, known for her work on the H3 podcast, to discuss and talk about her specific subtype with OCD, to further develop their campaign and reach out to people so they too can get the help they deserve.
I was diagnosed with OCD in 2020, and the theme that I was experiencing at the time was extreme crippling health OCD. Went to my psychiatrist in 2020 with what I thought was just anxiety, and my psychiatrist suggested that I might have OCD, and I was referred out to NoCD. I can honestly say that it has totally changed my life. I am speaking as someone who did not think they could ever be helped. I thought that OCD would be my life and it would cripple me forever.
Why did I choose to explore the misconceptions of OCD taught through the media? I decided to explore the misconceptions of OCD due to the impact I have personally felt from it, being diagnosed with OCD myself. Due to how large of an influence media has on its audience's perceptions on various topics and beliefs, I wanted to focus on how the mental disorder is portrayed through the media. To connect the media's portrayal to the audience's beliefs, I had some previous knowledge of the effects of OCD due to experiencing it myself, as well as an idea into the forms of treatment available. However, through making this documentary, I was able to develop my knowledge into the mental disorder, exploring the scientific explanations into OCD and the various subtypes and struggles people can be faced with. This process helped me to realize how little I knew about the mental disorder I have, which was very surprising and interesting to learn about. This allowed me to see how many misconceptions there are about the illness being spread through media sources and why stereotypical portrayals of OCD have such damaging effects on impressionable viewers. This really helped me with seeing how little representation there is, which is something I am hoping to improve and increase through this documentary, as I hope to work within the film and television industry to express my points of view on topics I can personally relate to. To conclude, I believe that exploring the misconceptions of obsessive compulsive disorder in teenagers from the UK was a successful topic and project for me to conduct for my EPQ artefact. Through creating the documentary, I was able to explore the reasons for the misconceptions, which I decided to turn to the media's portrayal of OCD due to how influential it is, especially for teenagers. I was able to research the characters from television shows, as well as influencers and others working in the media and claim the disorder themselves. From this, I then had the opportunity to conduct in-person and online interviews to find out the perception of OCD teenagers living in the UK have, and seeing if there were any connections to them being influenced by the media. Through interviewing the subjects, I was able to connect certain beliefs that people had about OCD and the characters and representations in the media supporting these beliefs. The stereotypes of OCD are still presented widely through characters and influencers, as they put their clear focus on the cleanliness and organisation side of the illness. This is then shown to be clearly misleading to audiences when they have similar ideas about what OCD is, despite many representations being far from reality. Although there are a lot of negative representations in the media, I do recognise that there are more truthful portrayals being introduced to audiences, with people with OCD sharing their experiences, therefore beginning to debunk the pre-existing ideas about the disorder. To compare the media's portrayal and the audience's beliefs, I was able to compare my findings to what the reality is by searching through credible websites such as NHS and NOCD websites. Through this section of my documentary, I looked into what OCD is, the possible causes, subtypes, focusing on other topics, not just the organisation and cleanliness stereotypes, and treatment possibilities, which I was able to directly contrast through choosing and analysing characters who are said to have OCD. This documentary was successful, as I was able to conduct thorough research as I looked into exploring the misconceptions of obsessive compulsive disorder in teenagers from the UK.